Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This show is obviously one of them. We also have a Facebook group. It's actually not a group. I always say it's a family. It's a Facebook family, and I would love to have you join us. You can find us at liveauthentically.today/FB. I also just launched my first book. It's called SOAR, SOAR, and it is a spiritual journey through a very transformative life experience and shows how I partnered with the universe and ushered myself to a place of soaring. And I believe this is something that everybody can do regardless of your situation. I believe that you all have power within you and can lift yourself up to unprecedented heights. So you can check that out either on Amazon or go to PamelaSavino.com. And today I am super pumped to have a very special guest and very dear friend with us on the show, Elizabeth Long. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks. How are you?
Good. This is so fun. I'm so excited to be on your show.
I know, isn't it so fun? It's such an honor. I'm super excited. I feel like the challenging part is going to be keeping this inside of an hour because I feel like I could sit here and talk to you all afternoon. So, so before we get into hearing about Elizabeth and her story, I would like to open the show with the same question I like to ask all of my guests. What does it mean to you to live authentically every day?
Right. So, I don't know. Really, the first thing that comes to mind is I don't know anymore how to live unauthentically, right? I can say that majority of my life, I lived unauthentically. And then probably about 8.5 years ago, I had a significant life change and I started to let go of whoever I thought I needed to be, whoever my family wanted me to be, my mom wanted me to be, my friends wanted me to be, my boss wanted me to be. And I really, I just sort of took a nosedive into life and hit really rock bottom. And what I started to see was that I could reinvent myself there, that beautiful space of rock bottom and start to figure out who I was. I was an adult when I did this. I wish it was something that I learned when I was 10 or 5, right? That strong sense of identity that you see in some kids. That just wasn't my journey, And I just started to embrace, to learn really who I was, and live in that space comfortably, which took a while. Which sounds so crazy, right? Just to be you, it was uncomfortable until it was comfortable, And so today, what do I do to live authentically? I wake up every day and I surrender. I am who I am,
Yeah. I love it. And you do it so well. I mean, you are just the definition of authenticity. You just show up as you are. I love your Facebook posts. Like sometimes you have your bathrobe on. You're like, hey, this is me. This is just who I am. And I love it. I love the authenticity. And I love how you just show up every single day as you are. And, you're raw, real, you're authentic. You just show up. And I think a big piece of that process, or a big part of that process of the journey to authenticity is removing all the stuff, right? Removing the masks and removing the facades. And I think sometimes we don't even realize that we're living inauthentically until it just becomes so incredibly cumbersome. And we realize, like you used the term rock bottom, that's when a lot of people start the journey to authenticity, is when they are at their version of rock bottom, because there is no other choice than to start. You realize, I can't live this way anymore. Something needs to change. So when you talked about embracing that, you talked about starting to embrace the journey to authenticity. What were some of the first steps that you took? Because I know that can be a really kind of nebulous term for people. How do I begin this process?
So when I started my journey on recovery, I met somebody who was also in recovery and sort of just had this light about her and this bounce in her step. I was so attracted to it. It's sort of, it was an impossibility for me. I had struggled with depression and anxiety majority of my life, and had really had no idea who I was. And so I just started little things like pray. Here's how you pray. I didn't even know how to pray. I thought you went to church on Sundays. I thought, maybe at dinner you prayed. It was just that practice of like, get on your knees in the morning, connect with something bigger than you. I don't even care what you call it. Just connect with that source. little things, start to rest in that place. And so I was just doing tiny little steps like that. I started reading a bunch of books, Drop the Rock, The Four Agreements, some of still my favorite books. And one of the funniest things that switched first was I love Christmas music. Okay. I love it. Like when it's Christmas time, it's December and 93.9 starts playing Christmas music 24 hours a day. I love it. But when I would have someone else in my car, I would turn it off. Right. If someone was getting in my, like something that I couldn't even be me with Christmas music. That's how much I was hiding who I am. Right. And if someone came over to my window at school pickup, I'd like turn it down or change the radio station. That was one of the first things, as silly as it sounds, that I embraced. I'm like, I like fucking Christmas music and I'm going to listen to it. Right. And this is like a bold statement for me. This is a bold move. Something that little. Isn't that funny?
It is, though. It's huge, though, because that's when I think you start to realize on the journey, we start to realize that we don't need that external validation. This journey has nothing to do with getting other people to understand us or approve of what we're doing. But we're just, through societal conditioning and a couple of other things, we're just so conditioned to look for that external approval, or that external validation. And we're so concerned with what other people think. And I mean, that's getting to the core of who we are is, that's one of the steps is just, it doesn't really matter, quite honestly. I always say, you know what, as long as you're coming from a place of love, I mean, not that it doesn't matter, but as long as you're coming from love and kindness and authenticity and all of those pure feelings and pure places, there's 7.6 billion people in the world. Like if someone doesn't like what you're doing, there's plenty of people to go around. And the more and more we anchor on our authenticity and who we are at the deepest core of our being, the more we'll attract our tribe, right? Our true tribe, who's really meant for us. So
I had a friend. I think this is something that sticks with me. I think about it all the time, especially if I get tripped up in what someone's thinking about me. Early in recovery, I had a friend who said to me, listen, what people think of you, which you've probably heard this part. The second part is what was transformative for me. What people think of you is none of your business, Lizzie. It's none of your business. Okay. So I had heard that before and I'm like, yeah, I kind of forgot about that. She goes, but what you think of other people will define your very quality of life. Pay attention to your thoughts, not theirs.
Yep. That's
right.
huge.
Right. What I think of them. Am I judging them? Right. Am I projecting guilt onto them, or am I, my job is just to love you, Right. So that was huge for me. What others think of you is none of your business, but what you think of them will determine your very quality of life, right? Pay attention.
I love that. Yeah. That
is life changing for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Business, but I better pay attention to what thoughts I'm putting out into the world, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. That was a great answer and great discussion around authenticity. Now I'd love to move into a deeper and more emotional topic. And Elizabeth has a beautiful story to share with all of you. I had the pleasure of meeting Elizabeth, I think it was in November of 2018. And I firmly believe it was totally divinely orchestrated. I believe that Elizabeth was meant to come into my path. And shortly after I met her, Elizabeth suffered a very tragic and very profound loss, and she has turned this into a gift to the world. It is just amazing to see the grace with which she has walked this journey. I'm not going to give any more details. This is Elizabeth's story to tell, but she is truly amazing, truly an earth angel. She is someone here who is just shines incredible light into this world, and you're just such a beautiful soul. And I'm just so grateful that you're here to share your message and your journey with everyone. So I'd love to turn it over to you to tell your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everyone just lower your expectations a little bit. Pam was giving me too much grace. Don't take it down a notch.
True. This girl walks on water.
No, hardly. I'm just another bozo on the bus, so I can talk a little bit about Michael. I think something that always sort of lights me up. It's an honor to get to talk about him, as it was an honor to sort of be loved by him. I used to say to him, it's really warm in your light. He was just a beautiful, beautiful soul that, although he's physically gone, and we acutely feel that day to day,
Yeah.
He's not gone, as you and I both experienced a couple of minutes ago, but
Right.
also I'm connected to his love constantly, and that's sort of something that has been one of the biggest lessons for me. This is all just a big classroom, in my opinion. This is just a classroom. My lessons come in every day, and sometimes they're like this and sometimes they're like this, but it's the same choice I get to make. How am I going to handle this? Am I going to navigate this call for love with love, or am I going to respond to a call for love with fear? And then that will determine my very experience of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we like to, or I like to inform, right? As Elizabeth, I think small, I think limited. I have 5 limited senses. I have 40 years of life experience. I know nothing. My best ideas are this big, typically. So Michael is the love of my life. I met Michael many years ago. I was in the middle of a divorce. I had just started drinking, which was how I was coping with my divorce. Again, would not recommend that to anybody, but that's how I chose to do it. So I started drinking, pardon me?
I said, mm-hmm.
Of course. Drinking wasn't a part of my story. I wasn't some big drinker before this. Mm-hmm. I started going through this divorce process, and as you know, and have experienced, I'm sure you have friends who have gone through divorce. It can be tricky. Sure. And, I was a 30-something-year-old, young, maybe 30-ish-year-old woman who lacked coping skills. And so here I was in this middle of a divorce, and I started drinking to cope with all of my feelings and all of my emotions. And it was a slippery slope for me. It went really, really quick. And I met Michael a few months into the filing of my divorce. We met at a fundraiser that a mutual friend of ours was having. And I knew when I saw him, I remember seeing him from across the room, and I literally thought to myself, this guy's heart is my home. Like, I knew it. I'm like, he's mine. I'm like, almost as if I had been waiting for him. Like, I'm like, there you are. As if I had. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
There he was, and there's other people on my path who feel like that. Like, I met you, I'm like, oh, you felt good. You felt like home.
Mm-hmm.
Beth McCormick, she feels like home.
Right.
Home, and we just connected and started chatting. And I had met him a couple other times locally. We live in the same town, but it was just, in passing or whatever. But it was him, and mm-hmm. So we connected then and started to get to know each other, and blended families and built this big, beautiful life. And in December of 2018, my little sister was having her first baby. So my big sister and I planned her baby shower in Florida, and we were getting ready to head down there. And on Friday, so let me see, he passed away Saturday, December 8th. So that Monday before, I woke up that morning, went into my closet to get dressed for work, and got on the ground and started sobbing. And this is not, I'm not at a point in my life where I experience this sort of sorrow, right? I don't suffer from depression anymore. And it was just painful, right? Sobbing. He comes in, he's like, what's going on? Is work okay? Your work's fine. Are the kids okay? The kids are fine. Yeah. He's like, what? Right? What is going on? I go, I don't know. I said, Michael, it feels like when my dad died. And I said to him, it feels like I'm grieving, like when I lost my dad. That's how this feels. And it was just tearing in my heart. So he ended up staying home half the morning on Monday. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on. This happened Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like sobbing. I called my OBGYN. I thought it was perimenopausal. Mm-hmm. My girlfriends, I know now, because after he passed, I got his phone. He reached out to my sisters. He's like, I've never seen Lizzie like this. What's going on? It was just a very emotionally painful week. And I just cried all week. And it felt like grief to me, right? So Friday, I'm supposed to fly down to Florida for my sister's baby shower. And Michael drives me to the airport, because that's what Michael does. He would never let me take an Uber or cabs. He said, no, I want every minute with you. So he drives me at a ridiculous hour in the morning to the airport. I get out of the car and I give him a hug and I say to him, I'm not supposed to leave you. He goes, yeah, you are, Lizzie. Honey, you've had the worst week. go be with your sisters, let them love you up. And I'm like, I'm not supposed to leave you. So he almost like pulls, right, my arms off of him, get my luggage going, get on the plane. My last text to him was, I shouldn't be leaving you. And he messages me back, let your sisters love you up in Florida. We'll take care of this when you get home. You know, love you. Go down to Florida Friday. I'm trying not to make it about me when I'm in Florida for my sister's baby shower. But I'm so overwhelmed with emotion, right? So Friday, I'm trying to like cram it down. My sisters are like, what's going on? I don't know. So Saturday we get up. I talked to him I talked to him in the morning, and then I talked to him last at 2:00. And same thing. He said, how you feeling? I'm like, I'm so sad. I can't. And I started to tear up. I was away from the baby shower at the time. I'm so sad. I don't know what it is. I can't get over it. You know, I love being with my family, but I'm like heartbroken. So he's at our friend's house. They're going hunting, and then he's going to drive home Saturday night. So whatever, had the baby shower. We had dinner at my sister's house, and we're in the nursery. My little sister's in the rocking chair. My big sister and I are on the queen bed, and they're like laying elbow to elbow, and we're just all talking. And my phone is dead, charging in the kitchen. And we're laying there, and all of a sudden, I feel Michael to my right. He's here. No different than I knew my sister was right here, right? And I see his accident in my head, and he is just to my right. And so I start screaming, oh my God, something happened to Michael. And my sisters, you know, look at me. My little sister looked nervous. She actually, in my memory, she sort of put her hands on her belly, right? She was pregnant. She's sort of like protectively. And I'm like, oh my gosh, something happened to Michael. And I start crying, and I'm like, help me, get up, help me. And I ran to the kitchen. I grabbed my phone. I started calling him. I texted his son to see if he had talked to him. And I said to my sister that Michael had died, and just waited. And about 35 minutes later, 40 minutes later, I got a call from a number that said Waseca County. And I remember I picked it up to my sister, and she was standing right in front of me. And I said, this person on this phone is going to tell me that Michael died. And my life, look at it, it's 11/11. My life, his son, my kid's life, his mother, his siblings, our lives are never going to be the same. And I have to pick up this phone call, you know? And I did.
Yeah.
And that was it. So like that, our dog was in the car with them. So we lost Michael and our dog. And here's the piece that was the biggest gift, right? So in any moment, we have a choice, right? Call for love. That's a call for love to me. There's loss, lack, limitation, right in your face. Are you going to respond to that call for love with love, or are you going to respond with fear, right? And I had my father died young, my brother died young. Premature loss is no strange journey for me. But this time, I consciously chose to do this different, right? As I was standing there, I'm listening on the phone. The coroner's telling me what happened. And I had this internal conversation. As crazy as this may sound to your listeners, I had this conversation of, okay, Lizzie, listen, you've done this before. You've done this with fear before. And you of all people know that grief, premature grief robs you of time, of experience, of life, of days, of hours. How are you going to do this? You know, and in that moment, I made a choice, which sounds crazy, but I'm going to do this differently. I have tools now that I never had before. And I'm going to choose to navigate this loss with love. I'm not going to invest in the story that we're these bodies and our love is limited and confined to that. I'm not going to invest in scarcity, lack, and limitation. I'm just not going to choose that this time. I'm going to decide that love that I was connected to before Michael was in a body, while he was in a body, and long after he's in a body, I'm connected to always. Just the body's gone, you know? And so that's been my journey. So from that moment, and that's not to say that, you know, with shifts, you don't have slips, right? That's not to say that there weren't moments that were painful, or that I invested in the body and the smallness of that, and that I missed him. There were. But I can tell you that this journey has been acutely different from my other grief experiences, and that it's been really beautiful. it's been a process of watching my love story with him change and mold into a love story with friends and family and community. It's been beautiful. We've
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joy.
It is just such a beautiful story. And I'd love to get into a little bit about, how you demonstrate and how you continue that love. But can we rewind for just a moment? And, in that moment where you got the call and you realized your lives would be forever different, where do you think you drew your strength from? I mean, that is just such an admirable, place to it's just such an admirable thing to witness and to hear about that, I'm going to do this differently in that moment. I mean, I think most people, grief is crushing, loss is crushing. And how do you deal with just the shock and the pain of all of that in that moment and draw from strength? Where do you think that comes from?
Yeah, so that's, I don't know what everyone calls it their own thing. It's my belief. That to me is God. That's to me is spirit. It's love, which I believe all those things, all those words. That's source love. That's perfect love. And so I had a practice myself, a spiritual practice myself that I had been practicing for about 8 years before this happened. And so I had a whole different set of tools that I could plug into. And that practice taught me the practice of listening to a different teacher, right? I could respond to a call for love with fear, lack, limitation, scarcity, or I could respond to a call for love, which is the death of a body, death of someone I love. I could respond to that with possibilities, abundance, love, and solutions, right? It's a different perspective, a different lens. And so I had those tools. I had been studying and practicing. I had built up that muscle memory of, can I respond to this differently? Can I shift the lens in which I perceive loss? Can I see this differently? Which is not, and I'm telling you, there are plenty of people who have made very uncomfortable. There are plenty of people who are like, not comfortable with the joy and the peace and the bliss that we experience, not comfortable with the fact that for my personal journey, I didn't have to do X, Y, Z. There are plenty of people who are like, there are 5 stages of grief. What stage are you in? And I'm like, I'm in the peace stage. I'm in the love stage. I'm in the experiencing joy right here stage. I'm at a funeral and I'm looking at the cross and I'm staying connected to his perfect love and detached from the body in the coffin stage. That's what I'm working on,
Yeah.
And it was just a different opportunity, but it was my spiritual practice that allowed me to choose again. Simply choose again. If you're not at peace, choose again. Work with a different teacher.
I love that.
Yeah. So
that. Have there been some challenging moments along the way? I mean, I think that's amazing to be connected to the divinity and to oneness and always staying connected to Michael and to love and to peace. But did you have some challenging moments kind of in the 3D as a human in this physical reality?
Yes. So if I buy into that other teacher, right, the teacher of lack, limitation, body, yeah, experience pain. I actually experience grief when I'm there. If I'm not thinking small and I'm not thinking limited, then I feel Michael more today than I did when he was alive. He's constantly near me, constantly, and I feel him. I feel it. So yeah, I think with shifts, there's slips, right? So here I have all these new tools, but I still am a body, I'm still limited, right? So yes, was it a lot? No. I remember saying to a girlfriend of mine, her son died 4 years ago. And I called her one day and I'm like, it's so crazy. It's like I can be in excruciating pain emotionally, right? Because I physically miss his presence as a physical being. It's like the memory of that. I'm doing unlearning the attachment and the smallness of that. So I could feel that. And I can experience acute joy. Like I am so joyful for my daughter's hand that just slipped into mine, or that I felt her little foot next to me in bed, or that she's sleeping in my bed right now, which wouldn't happen if Michael was here. And not that I wanted one over the other, but boy, could I be fully present in that moment to feel her little foot graze my leg, my calf or whatever. It was like the right here, right now. And it was such a huge shift so if I felt lack, if I went to that grief and loss, lack, limitation, pain, those stories that are so easy to buy into with grief. If I went there, I immediately shifted my focus, not on what I don't have, but what do I have? I have 2 healthy kids. I have Michael's love that I can choose to be attached to despite the loss of the body. friends and family that showed up. I have a roof over my head. I have a pillow that I love, you know. I
Yeah.
kept all my spiritual practices, which was a decision early on too, of like, I'm getting up and I'm still meditating every morning for 20 minutes. I'm doing a gratitude list, not just at night. Now I'm going to do it in the morning, at night. I wrote a mantra that I read every morning. All those practices to keep me rooted. And I have a community of people who know that I'm seeking peace, not chaos, right? So if I misstep, I'm finding myself in pain. If I'm aware that I'm working with a teacher that doesn't serve me, I have people I can reach out to and say, hey, listen, I need help. I need you to help me.
Yeah.
One, I need you to love me. And two, I need you to help me to reframe this, because I'm seeking peace, not pain. You know, peace, not pain. So, yeah, there were some trying times though. Mostly just missing the body. You know, I have a teacher that limited thinking, which is what we try to default to. It's funny, we think about, you know, so if someone came to you and said, hey, you're perfect light and you're perfect love, we're like, But if someone comes and goes, hey, let's talk about your strengths and weaknesses, you're like, here's my weakness, bam, 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 bam. You know, and so shifting that thought system, we go to scarcity, we go to painful stories.
Right.
How about we move to divine light, divine love, eternity, bliss, joy, peace? You know, so that's just a practice. It's just a practice. So I'm grateful for the tools. I almost stopped my spiritual practice, and I did, right? I was about 2 years to do it. And something, probably, it was actually some truth bumped up against me, and it rubbed me the wrong way. Sometimes it takes me some time to embrace truth, you know? I'm rooted in my ways. So I stopped studying the course. So Michael and I would take it at a class here in the town that I live in. And so Michael and I one day were walking up to get coffee, and we walked right by the space where I would go take my class. And we walked by, and he was holding my hand, and Michael, with grace, as he always spoke with love and kindness to me, said, you know, it was sort of undeniable, the joy and the peace, the love that you exuded when practicing this course, when studying this. God, you know, if people could get their hands on that, I don't know why anyone would ever quit. But, you know, he was like, hey, Momo, why don't you start doing this again? You gave up something amazing. So it was thanks to him that I started studying again. I'm like, you know what? You're right. Yeah. How can I move around this? You know, stop working against myself and start working for myself. And so I started my spiritual practice again. So sort of in honor to him, when this happened, I thought, okay, now I have all these tools thanks to him. Can I apply them? Can I have a different experience through this loss? We'll see. You know, I knew what the other experience was. I had done it before. It's painful.
Right.
So, can I have a different experience? It's worth. Why not? You know, why not? So.
Right. And I know it takes years or it takes a different period of time for everyone. It can take months, it can take years to really solidify and adopt a spiritual practice that will serve you in times like this. But how would you, and I know it's highly individual, right? What works for some people may be very different than what works for other people. But what, just for our listeners and viewers, can you summarize maybe a few key go-to practices or modalities that, let's say they're in the midst of that grief and loss and pain and despair, to little shifts that they can make on a daily basis to kind of help move them towards where you are, peace and light and love and abundance and that place where we're all, you know, where we all want to be?
Yeah. So I think the biggest practice is, I think to myself, and I talk to my kids about this, right? Where do your beliefs lie? So I feel like it's always an inside job. What does that mean? That meant nothing to me for so long, even though I would say it, I would give it lip service. And I really had no idea what that meant. So what does your internal belief system say? Are you safe? Does your internal belief system say that you are safe, loved, and whole? Or does it say you're separated, you're disconnected, and you have to defend and protect? You know, most of us head into this world, Pam, and we're like this, right? We have to defend ourselves. We're like this. I'm going to put up boundaries. I need to block. I stop protecting myself. Who's going like this? You know, I have everything I need within. So I think a practice would be helpful of building your belief system. But I told myself that I am safe, I am loved, I'm whole. I've never been broken. I've never been disconnected. So grief, I think taking a look at your belief system, when we experience grief, we typically feel disconnected. Right? We feel lost, and physically we have that loss. You know, they're not here. Can't hug them. But can we be connected to that love still? that energetic love, that source love? Can we be connected to that? Yeah. What sort of meditation can you do to plug back into that? What are your thoughts saying around it? Where do your beliefs lie? What can you lean back in your belief system to root you again? Reach out for love. So when grief comes to me, that's just a call for love. I need to respond to that with love. No differently than I respond to love with love, right? This is just a call for love. It's a story of lack, limitation, scarcity. It needs to be responded to with love. So we do all sorts of fun things in our home, to deal with grief. We tell stories still about Michael. I spend time in the morning, which is my commitment to him when this first happened. I promise that I'll be with you every morning for 20 minutes when I do my meditation. We'll connect there. I'll sit with you in silence, see how we can connect there. This is going to sound crazy bizarre, but I still chat with him all the time. I still feel him around. There's a light bulb above my sink in my bathroom that Ferguson's been gone 18 months. So for 18 months, it's been blinking over my sink. It started the day I came home after he died, after I got home from the airport. It's still going, I've tightened the bulb and it's still going. And so little things like that I'm accepting as signs. I don't fight that.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Morning.
Right.
I laugh and I joke with him still. It's our thinking is so limited though. We're like, okay, we're just the body. We can only have connection in this way. I know nothing. It's so, that thinking is so teeny, so small. So what if, and listen, there's no harm in cracking the door a little bit, having a tiny bit of willingness. What if we've never been as small and limited as the body? What if, and if you're spiritual or religious in any way, it talks about spirit, it talks about light, it talks about love, it talks about other things too, that, sort of synonymous as light in most religions across the board.
Right.
And spirit, not the confinement of the body. So what if, what if I can choose to be connected to that? Because we choose to think that we're not. Can we choose to think that we are? Can we crack the door a little bit and have some willingness?
Right.
Rest in that space.
That's such profound wisdom. And, I like to echo that. We're just so accustomed to operating in this physical world, right? We're limited by our five senses. We're used to operating in a space where we rely on what we can see and feel and hear, et cetera. But there is just so much more to who we are. And just when we connect with our divinity and when we really anchor on that source energy, universal energy, God, whatever you want to call it, whatever your term is for it. That's when we realize that we're connected to all that is. That's when we really harness our power. And that's when we access our divinity. And when we do that, when we approach life from that place, it's a completely different experience. Like you said, we don't come from lack and loss and limitation. We always can find love and peace and abundance when we're in that place. And it's like you said, it's a conscious decision, though. I love how in that moment you realized you had a choice.
Right.
And I think so many times we don't realize that we do have choices about what we do. And, even inaction is a choice. Every single thing that we do is a choice. So if we just take that macro and just kind of narrow down to the micro, right? In every moment I have a choice, right? In every moment, how can I choose love? How can I choose peace? How can I choose kindness? And just do that moment after moment after moment. And that's really the recipe to a happy life, right? Regardless of what happens in our external world, in our physical world, we're so reliant on, I think, just reacting or allowing our emotions to be directed by what's transpiring around us. But where we really harness our power is when we gain control of our emotions, regardless of what's going on around us. Right. And then that is sometimes, I agree, we're kind of met with looks of, I've not gone through the grief experience that you have, but even during my divorce process, even some of the professionals were like, when should the anger phase kick it? Like, shouldn't she be expressing anger at some point? And I'm just like, no, I'm not taking that. Yeah, I'm not taking that route. Like, I'm not doing that. That's not what this path is going to look like for me.
Yeah.
And it's a choice. That people ask me, well, how do you do it? And it's much like you, it's a choice in every single moment. So can you talk a little bit about that, maybe about how people can start the shift and make those choices in those micro moments?
Right. So I think so brilliantly, you're talking about we are much too tolerant of mind wandering. And we literally think that it's cause and then effect, right? Something happens outside of us and then we have an internal emotional or thought response to it. I would argue that it's cause and then effect, right?
Right.
So it goes back to, though, in order to choose that, it goes back to where do your beliefs lie, right? So if I feel like I'm disconnected, like I'm alone, like I am afraid, I'm vulnerable, right? So I can be victimized. It's really hard for me to choose a thought system that would say that I'm safe, loved, and whole, right? Or that I'm going to be provided for. To choose an abundance thought system, if my root foundation is a belief system that I'm not safe, I'm not whole, I am broken, right? So I think that it goes, I should say, my experience has been, I need to fix myself. I need to fix my belief system in order to even get to those thoughts. Because if my feet are planted in scarcity, lack, and limitation, I can't choose love over fear because I'm afraid. No, I can't choose peace over chaos because I only know brokenness. So that like subtle shift, and like the one message, if I could give a message to all human beings, honestly, it would be, you are safe, you are loved, and you are whole. The first time that someone said to me, you're not broken, I'm like, good God, that changes everything. Everything. I've never been broken. I'm like looking at all my crazy behavior, which has been a long life. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I would have done any of that if I thought I was whole, any of it. And it's not that my parents didn't tell me I was broken. My family didn't tell me that. They're wonderful, lovely human beings. I told me that. I perceived through a lens that was gray. I perceived through a lens that told me whispered stories of scarcity, lack, and limitation, and I invested wholeheartedly. So can you build your belief system investing wholeheartedly in a whole different foundation? Can you believe that you are always deeply connected to love? Period. Can you believe that you are whole? That perfect love and that perfect light has never been broken? Can you operate from that position? So much easier to get to abundance and possibilities from there. But it was really challenging for me, and I read a lot of books about your thoughts and manifestation. But I'm telling you, if your root foundation is in scarcity, lack, and limitation, it's so hard to change your thoughts. So hard to change your thoughts. So just working on that. When I first started shifting, so maybe this is what you were asking me earlier, it's a little bit more concrete. When I first started shifting my thoughts, I read ridiculous amounts of books, and then self-help books. And then I started to pay attention to my thoughts. I'm much too tolerant of mind wandering. I just feed myself. And now I know we think, 66 or 68,000 negative thoughts a day, right? So what am I feeding myself all day long? What am I what am I feeding myself in my mind? What thoughts am I feeding my mind? So I started to notice I have a very clear pattern of my thoughts. You're not good enough. You're not smart. You're dumb. You're ugly. And so you're not a good mom. You're not a good friend. You're a horrible sister. So there's not a lot of stories I didn't tell myself that were negative. So as I started hearing that, I decided, okay, I don't even know how to shift these, right? One, I felt broken my whole life. So I started to work on connection, connection to my higher being, whatever you call it, he, she, it, God, Buddha, Holy Spirit, universe, nature, whatever you call it, find that, and start connecting to that, so that I realized that I here can never be disconnected. So whether a friend calls me or not, I'm connected. Whether my kids receivingly love me that day, my husband, whoever I'm setting expectations on, I have everything I need within, right? So that practice of working on that foundation to be able to have that thought system. So I worked on that, but then I pen to paper, which I'm sure not everyone needs this. I'm a slow learner. I wrote down on a legal size notepad my story, and then I would leave spaces underneath my stories, right? And I had pages of these. So as my stories would come up, I'd be like, oh, negative shit show story. Because literally I would like pack a shit bag for myself and wait on the platform for the shit train, and I would jump on. I would just go with those thoughts right out of the train. I'm like, I'm so done sitting on that platform. How do I do this differently? So that was my solution. I'd write down all my negative stories, and then underneath I would rewrite a story that served me well, right? Whatever that was. You're actually an amazing mom. And if nothing else, you give your all. You're not perfect, but you give your all from love, period. Okay, so all my different stories. And then like a nutball, I carried around my notepad. And when I would hear a story that did not serve me and that I no longer wanted to be my truth, I'd go, oh, what's my new story? I would have to pull it out because all I knew was my negative story. Even if I had just written my new story a couple minutes before, my negative story was so deeply implanted, I couldn't even hear my new story. right? So I'd have my
Yeah.
little head, you're broken, you're not good enough. No, I am good enough. I'm unconditionally all encompassed, unconditionally loved. I'm good. I have everything I need within, but those stories, I didn't know those stories.
Yeah. And I think that internal dialogue is just so important. What we tell ourselves really is, it's absorbed in every cell of our body. It creates our reality, really. I mean, the relationship we have with ourselves, everything stems from that. How we feel about ourselves is just so incredibly important. So it's important to, reframe your thoughts. I am whole. I am loved. I am keep rewiring your mind that way. And, I am beautiful. I am strong. I am healthy. I am kind. Yeah. Those are the daily affirmations that we should all be saying every day. And that's really when our reality starts to transform. And what I was going to say too about the belief system, I don't script my questions for the show, but one thing that came to me when I was getting ready right before the show is I said, I want to ask her, what do you believe? What do you believe? And through your answers and through our conversation, you were just naturally led to that place and shared your beautiful belief system. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah. I believe, I just posted this morning that the more I feel like, the older I get and the more I feel like I spiritually learn, the more I realize that I know nothing at all. Nothing at all. I'm like, I know nothing. I'm just limited. I'm a drop of water in an ocean, and yet at the same time, I believe that we're brilliant, and I believe that we're majestic, and I believe that we're that divine love,
Yeah.
But in a body, I'm small. And I think to myself, I say to my kids all the time, I don't know, I'm not the figure-outer. What are we going to do with this? When Michael passed away, we had a situation with our house and whether or not we were going to be able to stay. And Lily came down nervous one day, and what are we gonna do, Mom? Where are we gonna go? What are we gonna do? And I'm like, hey, I'm not the figure-outer. I don't. She goes, well, who is? I'm like, hey, not me. Here's what I know today, right now, in this moment. You're gonna go to school. I'm gonna go to work. Meg, who's a friend of mine who's a realtor, Maggie's looking at a house for us. I have moving boxes in the garage. We'll pack up a couple boxes a week. That's it. I'm not the figure-outer. That's what I know for this moment right now. So she goes, well, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard, And she's like, parked next to the car, and I took her to school. But here's the deal. 3 days later, we had a call that changed our lives, right? Something happened that you would never, ever, ever in a million years think would happen. So little Lily comes home 3 days later from school, and I go, hey, kid, grab a notepad and come and sit down on this table with me. So I go, Lily, let's write down all our best ideas of possible outcomes for us having to move from this house. She goes, okay. So she gets out a notepad and she's like, well, we can move into a condo because we were divorced and we lived in a condo and we loved it. So she's like, in a condo. I'm like, okay. And this house that we're in, we found with Michael. And he cried when we walked in the door, and it's sunny and bright and beautiful. And this is like 4 months after he died, right? So none of us were looking forward to moving, but so we can move in a condo, right? We can move back in with Dad, my ex-husband. I'm like, right, but no. But she put on the list, and so then she's like, well, we can move with Grammy. I'm like, oh, Grammy lives in Florida. Do we really want to move to Florida? Maybe, okay, put on the list. But then we'd have to move, and we'd be in Florida, whatever. Okay, Aunt Tracy. Well, Aunt Tracy lives in Colorado. But okay, put her on the list. We'd have to move. And so she writes down her list, and I'm like, right. So anywhere on that list, is it that something really extraordinary would happen and we would get to stay in this house, Lily? She was like, no. I'm like, well, that's what happened. And that's why I'm not the figure-outer, because my ideas are core ideas. This, Yeah. She was like, get out of here. I'm like, yeah. That's why we just show up like this. My job is just to love you. My job is to show up in service. Hands up. And it's funny because we could have God or divine or universe or whatever you call it in the kitchen making this huge buffet, to your point of what we're doing with our kids during quarantine, but making this huge buffet, and we come running into the kitchen with salt. Hey, do you think you need a little salt for the scrambled eggs or the whatever? No, I got it. Step out of the kitchen, we run back in, we're like, hey, you want these breadcrumbs? How about our breadcrumbs? No. I'm going to bake you loaves. I don't need your breadcrumbs. Yeah. That's what we do until we don't. Until we go, I know nothing. And when death happens to us, or divorce, or job loss, or whatever comes your way, right? Bankruptcy, whatever comes your way. When those things happen, we get to say, okay, I've been lovingly cared for this far. Everything's rigged in my favor, even when I can't see it. Hands off, faith and surrender. So anyways, I don't know how I got on that, but I did. I wanted to read you this prayer that I wrote after Michael died. You asked one of the things that, or something, tools that people can use after loss, right?
Yeah.
And this is something that helped me. So I flew home on late Sunday night. We told the kids what happened to Michael with my ex-husband, who's a saint through this whole process, very loving. And I came home Monday, and Wednesday morning, I woke up, and it was, I have my practice that I do, and it's surrender, right? It's surrender and faith. But it was so physically painful when I woke up in the morning, because you'd forget when you went to sleep, and then you'd wake up and you're like, oh my God, it physically hurts so bad. And so I'm like, I have to not just surrender in prayer, I'm going to have to physically do something to surrender. So I started turning my palm in bed. Like, I would open my eyes and I would turn my palms up to physically have a sign of surrender, not just through my prayer and my thoughts. And I would lay there and say my little prayer. So it is, I'm checking in for the day and I'm checking out, as I know you've got this. Thank you for another day, for lungs that breathe, for eyes that see, for legs that walk, and certainly hands to carry. Help me to remember that I am perfect light and I am perfect love, and that your love is all-encompassing, unending, and unconditional. Help me to remember that I am tapped into it always and never walk alone. Help me to focus on what I do have today and not on what I don't have, and to remember that my job here is simply to love, bless, and heal. Show me where you want me today. Direct me to what you want me to do, what you want me to say, while divorcing me from victimhood, self-pity, and self-seeking motives. Help me to see abundance and possibilities where I once saw lack, limitation, and dead ends. I am open for love, and I say that wholeheartedly. I'm open for possibilities and abundance as I heal and rest in you. Help me to head into this day as a fearless extension of God's love. And so it is, amen. I still say it every morning. It just sets me straight for the day.
Wow. Amen. That is beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Absolutely. Such a beautiful poem and such a beautiful story. And again, just so admirable how much grace and, you've and faith and et cetera. I mean, the list goes on that you've carried yourself with through all of this. And most importantly, that you've recognized that this is a gift to the world and you're sharing it with other people and showing them, not just telling them, but showing them. You're walking the walk every single day and showing them how they can choose love and choose gratitude and choose peace and choose kindness and choose to live in the moment, right? Choose to squeeze all of the joy that we possibly can out of every single moment, because that's all we have, right? That's all, regardless of our circumstances, that's all each and every one of us has, is this very moment. Yeah. So, and I know you do a lot to share your message on a broader scale professionally. So if you would love to tell our viewers and listeners about what you do, I know you're a speaker, et cetera, just about how you share your message and what you do professionally and how they can get a hold of you, that would be great.
Absolutely. So I have Instagram and Facebook, so I think we'll post that information. And then I have a website. It's elizabethevanslong.com. I do speaking, I do coaching. I teach spiritual soul circles on Monday night, Wednesday night, and Friday. And everything's inclusive, much like you, Pam. Whether it's taking a class, whether it's connecting with me on social media, you can show up at my house for dinner. Everything I do is inclusive. But that's how you can get a hold of me. And my goal is just to remind people who they are, to help teach people that we've got another way of living. We can simply choose again. We can have peace over chaos, and to teach people, as I teach myself, that we're safe, loved, and whole, divinely.
Yeah, such a beautiful message. Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time today to share your story. And I would like to thank all of our viewers and listeners for being here today. As you know, I believe that time is a choice, and you have consciously carved out time from your day to be here and listen to Elizabeth's story and all of her divine wisdom. So thank you for making the choice to do that. Once again, I would love to invite you to our Facebook family. We can be found at liveauthentically.today/FB. And also remember to check out pamelasavino.com for information on my book and how you can get to a place of soaring. So once again, thank you, and I hope you all have a great day.